Hey guys, this is Mitch with FindPoint CGI, and today we're going to create a peer-to-peer chat system. Now, this is a second part of a multi-part series where I take you through the process of creating a login and chat system with Firebase. So today we're going to be covering creating the interface, we're going to set up the host, and then we're going to be setting up a client that sends messages using RPC. And finally, we're going to be disconnecting from that instance and cleaning up after our connection. So that's what I have in store for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is we are going to need to create a user interface, right? So it can show up on the user, interface. And then we're going to right click here. We're going to add in a child node. And then we're going to go ahead and add in a button. And we will pull this button, I don't know, throw it somewhere here, I guess. And then we're going to duplicate that button and we're going to pull that down a tiny bit. So this will be our host button. This will be our joining button. And then we're going to duplicate it again for a third button. And we're going to pull it down here. We're going to make that our leaving button. So we'll say leave. We'll call this leave. We'll click on this one. We'll call this one join room. And I'll copy that. We'll paste that in here. Join room. And then we'll call this one host room. And we'll put a space. Whoops, put a space right there. All right. Now we're going to need a line edit. And we'll add that in. And a line edit's going to allow us to input the IP address that we're connecting to. So that way we can test our chat box in our chat system. Now I'm going to right click, add in a panel. All right. And this panel is just so that we can see some stark change in color between, like, so we can see the text in the background, right? Because we don't want our text just to be a transparent thing, right? You want a panel of some description. And of course, you can always theme it by going in here and adding in a theme and changing the color and making it, you know, how you guys want. So you could custom style, see, it to be whatever you would like. And if you want me to go through the process of changing the styles and really theming this and making it look really nice, let me know and I'll make a quick tutorial on that. But for right now, we'll just make it nice and, you know, black and standard. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in an input box. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in a line edit again. And we are going to put that underneath our panel here. And then we're going to click on our line edit, go up to our layout, click on that, and then go to bottom wide. And what that's going to do is it's going to snap it to the bottom of our chat box here. So that way, no matter how big we make our panel, it will follow that little box here. And that way, if somebody wanted to change the size of this panel, let's say you were making an MMO, right, and you want them to be able to change their size of their chat box, it's going to stick with their chat box here. And we can, you know, kind of go through and make it a little bit higher and a little bit smaller, right? So that way it's just a tiny bit, has a little bit of padding on either side, things like that. And you can go ahead and make those changes and adjustments yourselves, but that's what I'm going to do for mine because it'll be nice that way. Now I'm going to right click on my panel here, add in a text edit right here. And I'm going to make this full rect so it goes the entire size of the screen. And then I'm going to pull this up. So that way, when you look at your control or you look at your panel here and you adjust your panel size, you'll notice that they stay the exact same distance apart and they work with each other. See, I mean, if you make it really small, you'll notice that this one doesn't quite match up. And that's okay. You know, that has a minimum size that we have to have. But now it will stay scalable is what I'm trying to say. So now we have that. We're ready to start our coding and start our hooking up of things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to right click our control. We're going to attach a script and we're going to call it Chat Manager. Or we could say Chat Box Manager perhaps. We'll go ahead and hit enter. So now, first thing we need to do is we need to right click our room, or not right click our room, I'm sorry, click on our room, go to node, button up, and we'll double click on that. We'll connect it. Same thing with join room, double click button up, connect, leaving, double click button up, and go ahead and connect that. And that's going to go ahead and throw all of our little functions in here. So that way, when we click on these buttons, they actually do something. And now we're going to get to coding. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create our host for this. So we need to actually host our information. So we're going to say is func host underscore chat. We're going to put our little colon there. And then we're going to say var host is equal to networked multiplier enet.new. All right. And then we're going to say host.create server. And we need to give it a port ID. So let's go with something like, I don't know, 2000, or we could say 200 or 500 or something like that. The host number or the port number doesn't matter as long as you don't do some of the restricted ports like 8080, 8081. You know, I think there's a couple of them. Let me actually open up. If you go onto Wikipedia here, you can actually see some of the common ports. And you can see like 0, 1, 5, 7, 9. So like all of these things, if it says reserved here, you don't want to use it. If it doesn't say reserved, then you can usually get away with it. But if it says reserved, don't use it. In general, if you see it on this list, try to avoid using it. But, you know, you can, in theory, use it. But that's just something to keep in mind. So that way you're not taking up a port that somebody might need. So for instance, like, odds are a user might not have, you know, Microsoft SQL Server on their machine, right, when they're playing your game. But if you can avoid the port, you might as well just avoid the port, right? Like here, you know, Windows Live Messaging, right? I mean, odds are they're not going to have that on their machine, but it's a good idea just to avoid it anyway. So I would definitely take a look at this. I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can check it out. But in general, if it's on this list, just try to avoid using it. It's just easier. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say get underscore tree dot set network, set underscore network underscore peer host. And what that's going to do is it's going to get your tree and it's going to go grab your network peer object, which is a Godot object, and it's going to go and set that as your network peer, as the host. So it'll say, hey, this thing is going to be the host, if that makes sense. And then we're going to create a function called join room, because we need to be able to join that room, right? And we're going to say var IP, because we need to get their IP address. And we're going to say that's equal to $ the line edit. Now, I don't like that name for line edit, so let's go ahead and change that to IP address. And then let's go ahead and change this line edit to chat input. And let's go ahead here and go chat box. All right. That'll just make things easier for us to understand what's going on here. So we'll go $IP address dot text. And we'll say var host is equal to networked multiplayer. And we're going to make it an enet.new. And then we're going to say host.createClient. And we need to give it an IP address, so IP and then port of 2000. Now, generally speaking, these are things that you would probably get from a server. But in this case, we're just going to get it, you know, locally so we can go ahead and test our stuff. And then get underscore tree. And then we're going to say set underscore network underscore peer. We're going to say host. So basically what we've done is the exact same thing, right? Here versus here. The only difference is we're saying, hey, network peer, go ahead and take this and create a server. And we're saying, hey, network peer, go ahead and here and create a client and connect to this server. That's all we're doing. That's all we've got to do. So now our two systems are going to go talk to each other at this point. So now we need to be able to send data back and forth, right? We need to be able to have that conversation, and we've produced the handshake, right? We've said, hey, we've got connection. Now we need to transfer data from each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to say func send underscore message, and we're going to say var message is equal to $panel chat input here dot text. And then we're going to say var id is equal to get underscore tree dot get network unique ID. So what this is going to do is it's going to say, hey, go and fetch me a unique ID. And this is important because everything here has conversations via an ID, right? So if you don't have a unique ID, you won't know which message is coming from who. So you want to make sure that when you send that message out, it's always unique, if that makes sense. So think of it kind of like your social security number if you're an American, or whatever you guys have, like a driver's license number, right? It's a unique number that identifies that person or that chat instance, or that chat user instance, right? And then what we need to do is we need to do an RPC and then receive underscore message, comma ID, comma message. So RPC is a tool called remote. So RPC is remote procedure call. And basically what you're saying is, hey, go and call this method out on the network. Hey, Editor Mitch here. Just to let you guys know, I don't cover this, but inside of here, once you're done sending that message, you're going to want to say $chat input dot text is equal to empty. And the reason why is because if you don't set it to empty, then their message doesn't disappear when they send that message. So make sure you just do that. I know I don't have it in the tutorial, but just make sure you do that, or else you're not going to get a message that's going to be reset when you're done. All right. Thanks, guys. So now that we've got this RPC message going out, we're going to need to be able to receive that RPC message, right? Because we're trying to remote procedure call something. So we're trying to call a remote function out on the host, right? So we'll go func receive underscore message. Now, if you look at what our RPC says, it says ID and message. So we need to pass in ID, comma message. And then we need to say $panel chat box, right? Dot text plus equals, because we're trying to add a message to that, right, to our chat box. And we're going to say strid, so that way we can know who sent the message. And we're going to say plus, quote, colon, space, plus our message, and that should do it for us. All right, now we need to, on host room button up, we need to host our chat. And then on join button up, we need to join our chat. All right. Now, if everything's set up correctly, we should at least have something that runs. So let's see what happens if we do that. So looking at our code, we don't have a way to send a message. If we hit play, so if we type 127.0.0.1, which is our loopback address, in every computer it's the same. It's just 127.0.0.1. That means I'm talking to myself, not out to the internet. And I click host, and then I start typing like hello. You'll notice that if I hit enter, nothing really happens. That's because we're not calling our send message here. So what we need to do is we need to come in here and have a input, so underscore input, and then we're going to pass in our event, right? And then we'll say if our event is a input key, then if event.press and event.scan code is equal to key underscore enter. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you want me to send a message. I missed my C. That's why I wasn't getting. I'm sitting here wondering why I'm not getting auto completions, because I'm missing my C. All right. So now if I play this, so you'll notice that when we hit our enter key, nothing seems to happen still, right? And if we look at our console, we don't have any issues here, right? There's nothing throwing a fit. You do have some Firebase stuff, but again, that's because I'm using my Firebase project. But you'll notice that nothing seems to be wrong here, right? Well, the reason why is because we don't have sync in front of our receive message. Whoops, I need to actually spell sync right. And what that should do is it should register this with our network unique, our remote procedure call system. So if we refresh that, and we're going to go ahead and go 127.0.0.1, and we're going to host a room, and we're going to type test, enter, and you'll see that it shows up, which is good. So we've got our first step, but now we need to test if people can join our room. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to open up a whole nother instance of Godot, unfortunately. And this is my Firebase login menu. So Firebase login menu. And we'll go ahead and run that. Unfortunately, testing multiplayer is kind of complicated inside of Godot a little bit. And if anybody knows a better way of doing this, let me know. And throw it in the comments below and let me know, because I would love to know. So now if I go ahead and hit play on this, I have 2 instances of this open. See? And then I can go 127.0.0.1, and we will join the room, and we will type hello from other person. I can't spell to save my life. And you'll see, look at that. It pulled that data right here. But you notice that we have a slight problem here. It looks like our little text is getting appended to the end. And the reason why is because if we come over here, let me make sure I have the right one. I do. Okay. Oh, just go ahead and resave. You'll notice here that we're not doing a new line here, right? So we're not saying /n. So if we hit plus quote /n, what that's going to do if I refresh all of this. So let me go ahead and close this, open up this. It's going to yell at you, reload it. Let's make sure that it's correct. So it's got the /n. It does. So let's go ahead and refresh and reload that page and go ahead and hit play on this one. And we are going to try to host a room and join a room. So 127.0.0.1, host a room. And then we're going to go 127.0.0.1, join a room. And then we're going to say test. And then we're going to say hello from host. And you can see now we have our text showing up. So that's how hard it is to create a chat box. It's really easy, and it takes a few minutes to kind of whip it together. Now the question is, how can we make this a little bit more exciting, a little bit more interesting, and a little bit more useful, right? The first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to close these. So we're going to need to create a couple events here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say get underscore tree. Oops, get underscore tree. Open and close. And then dot connect. And we're going to connect a couple events here. So we're going to say, hey, when we connect to the server, let's go ahead and fire off a, hey, I connected to the server, right? So we get some feedback. So we're going to say connected to server, comma, self, right? Because we want to pass that to ourself. And then we're going to say, hey, we entered our room, right? And then we're going to want to control C, control V, a couple of those. And we're going to say, hey, how about when we connect to a peer, right? So network underscore peer underscore connected. And then we're going to say, hey, so a peer is connected, right, So we're going to say a new user has entered, right? So new user connected. And then we're going to say, hey, somebody disconnected, right? Network underscore peer underscore disconnected. And we're going to say, hey, user disconnected. And then finally, we're going to have our server disconnection. Because we want to notify the user that, hey, their server just got disconnected, right? So we'll say server disconnected. Okay, so now that we got our events here, we're going to go in here. We're going to say func entered room underscore room colon, and we're going to say $ chat box, if it'll let me. Oh, I'm missing my parens here, so let me get those in. $ chat box dot text plus equals quote entered room. And we're going to go with the /n there. And now we're going to copy that. We are going to enter a few times. That way we don't have to recreate all this code. And we're just going to copy, paste, and copy, paste. All right. This one, we're going to say server is disconnected. This one, we're going to pass in an ID, and same thing with this one. We'll do that for both of them. And we will say ID plus has entered the room. All right, and then we will say ID plus has left the room, right? And actually, I'm going to say entered the room. And we'll put a capital E there. And that should allow us to do a basic, hey, users connected, users disconnected, things like that. So let's go ahead and refresh this and let's see if it worked for us. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to bring up my second Godot instance. We'll reload it. And then we will do a click. Whoops, wrong one. Which Godot instance am I in? This one. It's hard to keep track. There's so many of them. All right. So now we've got two instances of this open. So we're going to say 127.0.0.1 and we're going to host. And then we're going to say 127.0.0.1 and we're going to join. Open. We've got ourselves a little crash here. So let's see what's going on. Invalid operator plus, oh, I need to cast these as strings. That's why. All right. Let's do that. str. All right. Refresh. Cool. And then we'll click on this one and it'll tell us to reload our stuff. So we're going to reload and refresh. All right. Now we've got two of these running. So 127.0.0.1 host. 127.0.0.1 join, and you will see that it tells you, hey, number one has entered the room, and you have also entered the room, and it'll notify them that they have entered the room. So that's a good way of showing, in like telling people, hey, this stuff actually operates properly, right? And if you leave, you'll see that nothing happens. Now, why is that? Well, that's because we are not checking. If a host leaves the room, this leave button does nothing, right? Well, we need to go ahead and tell the server that we're going to disconnect, right? So we need to go ahead and do get underscore tree dot set underscore network underscore here is equal to null. So it's going to go ahead and just set that to null and get rid of that connection. So we'll save, we'll refresh, we'll click on our, here, let me close all of these to make sure that everything's cleared. Now we'll play, and then we'll open up our second instance of Godot, and we'll refresh that. All right, now if we go 127.0.0.1 and we host a room and we do 127.0.0.1 and we, whoops, that's .7.1, join a room, you'll see that we have a connection here, so that's all connected. And then if one of us leaves, it'll say, hey, that person has left the room. And it's that simple. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. And we talked about creating hosts, setting up connections, sending messages with remote procedure calls or RPC calls, or I guess they're just called RPCs. And we disconnected from our instances and cleaned up a little bit after our process here, or after our chat. And as always, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Hey, if you dislike this video, hit that dislike button, because I make this content for you guys, and I want to make sure that I make content that you guys enjoy. So, if you guys have any suggestions or things you want me to cover in the future, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks.